Awesome. Hello. Welcome to Conversations with UX Copenhagen. I'm Helle Martens.
And I'm Lone Ørum.
And we are co-hosting the UX Copenhagen 2022 conference in March, on March 28th and 29th. So far, it's still going to be 100% online, but we are working on a hybrid solution so that maybe at least people in Denmark can join the conference. Anyway, that's besides the fact. Today we are here with Philip Thonbo. He is actually, I'll let you introduce yourself. Welcome, Philip.
Well, I'm a classic UX designer, but with a twist of I'm autodidact, if you can call it that. I've been working at agencies the last 20 years with a small break at the client's office at Selling Group, where I was a UX manager for 5 years. And I also worked practically with a lot of things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so we had Philip over for, Philip lives in Aarhus, right?
Yeah.
In part of Denmark, and I invited him to Copenhagen to talk at World Usability Day in November 2021, this year. And yeah, I mean, Philip has a lot of good ideas, and I can tell that as a speaker, I'm gonna have to hold him in very tight reins because he's all over the place, but a super interesting guy. So I'm super excited to be talking to you again, Philip. So tell me about, okay, I forgot to mention also that we have a code of conduct at UX Copenhagen, and it is a safe stage for all voices to voice different opinions. So we will not tolerate any kind of harassment or discrimination, just so that everybody's aligned. Of course, that's not going to happen. And also the background for these talks is that I normally would have this talk, just me and the potential speaker alone, but it's always so interesting to get to know these people. So I wanted to share it with the world. So that's basically how it started. So Philip, tell me about your talk proposal for UX Copenhagen 2022.
My talk proposal is an old topic I've been talking about on other conferences in Aarhus, and it's basically because I have a large background in game design, and in the first agency I worked at, we did a lot of loyalty programs with both plastic cards and point systems, and back then we did a lot of marketing games, and we tried to combine some of these rules in terms of psychology and behavioral change into these systems, where we try to trigger people to come in and do something, and then in turn we would reward them with something. And often in marketing you would see a lot with you get a lot of rewards in terms of free shit, if I have to say it in that sense. People love to get free shit, and it works immediately when you pull it out of the hat. It's something that we see from there's a lot of different marketing platforms that enables these Wheel of Fortune games and getting people coupons and all that. So one of the system we worked with was trying to enable more intrinsically motivating elements and rewards that was not costly both for the company, but also a bit pure in terms of a warm-hearted welcome, instead of giving people 10% to start shopping. It really has this tendency of focusing on the carrot on the stick instead of focusing on the brand and the environment. So that is basically what the talk is about. And then I have a model we worked on back in Copenhagen, where we try to pace a loyalty program with these kind of rewards. So the first week the customer comes in, you don't need to treat him the same way after he's been a loyal user for half a year or something like that. So it's sort of trying to tailor in how to treat your customers in different loyalty levels.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, a really good example is often when you download something like Endomondo or running apps or apps that sort of have a service that would like to have a longer relationship with you. Often you would, when you log in, you will get some kind of a bonus, either in terms of points or something inside the service, or often you would also see coupons or 10%. It's basically, it's really fine to do extrinsic motivation in terms of real tangible rewards in the start of the journey, because it works just out of the box, and people again love to get it. But when when you then pace them down through the lifetime of the customer, then you need to sort of shift them into a focus where you're more personal, and you stop giving them free shit, and you start giving them care and fulfillment. So that's what it's about, and often you would nowadays you would get app notifications a lot, come back to us, and we have this for you, and we would love you to start doing this and that, to get started on this. So a lot of win back elements, and a lot of challenges. Often you would see services challenge the users down the road in order to activate them. So challenges have to be meaningful, but often when I download a weight loss app or a running app, I really want that app to keep me going. And you also see some of these behavioral patterns in recipe apps and different services that are a bit more long-term than just an e-commerce website, where they only expect you to come in once, and then when you have completed your purchase, it's an NPS score, and then out of the we need to be better at getting the lifetime into evaluation, instead of just treating the customer right the first time and then treating them exactly the same way when they come back a week later, and if they keep coming back, just keep treating them as everybody else. We need to sort of disrupt that and try to tailor some personalized models to that. So this model I'm going to go through is something that was built back before the iPhone was even in place. It was something that was built back before GDPR. So all the concerns about personal data and cookies, it wasn't it's not something that I'm going to dive deep into. Of course, we need to be able to come up with some creative elements that can be done with the legislations we have today, but I'm pretty sure it can be done if we look at especially if we look at the app landscape, how that works. But there is also a lot of other technologies that enable tracking of loyalty somehow.
Do you want to show the process that you're talking about?
Yeah, I can. So I have a sort of I drafted out a presentation if you want me to go through that.
Sure, if you want.
Yeah, definitely. So let me see.
It's free form, and since there's only 5 of us here, Torbjørn and Stina, you can pop in anytime if you have a question, if that's okay with you, Philip.
Yeah, it's totally fine. I'm here to get feedback. So
yeah.
So I was actually writing in the chat asking if that was appropriate to ask questions.
Oh, funny. Yeah, sure. Please do.
All right. So just so I get it right, like completely straight, is if we take what you're going to present and what you're talking about is a presentation about the journey of the customer from, and how you use a loot cannon system to keep the customer and making sure that they are engaged throughout the life cycle of the customer.
Yeah.
From the time that they enter until the time that they leave. And I think what you said, which got my attention, was this, stop giving free shit and start giving care.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the transformation, like the trend, like, and that is that, if I understand it correctly, that is the key point, or the heart of your presentation.
Yes,
that would be that sentence.
Yeah.
It's like,
so while you're talking, I'm sitting struggling getting my screen sharing to work. It's been a while since I used Zoom, so I'm really afraid that I need to reboot the meeting and come back, and then I have a lot of answers for you inside the slides.
Perfect.
Sure,
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that I was having the right approach and the right.
You're spot on. And yeah.
Hashtag kindness.
Yes.
Yeah. That was actually one of our speakers from last year. He uses that hashtag. Adam Smith, hashtag kindness. I totally believe that's the way forward. I think that's what's going to reach the business. Yeah. All right, so Philip, go ahead and reboot.
Yep.
And
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Torbjørn, Stina, is that something that you use in your work as well?
Yeah. Yes and no. It's a little bit of it's a tricky question, actually. I really want to do it. I think so I'm the head of UX and design in a company called Keep It, where I have the design team, then we have customer success, like it's a big company, and there's a lot of different. So the way I try to do this is by actually making the application worthwhile, and it's cloud to cloud backup. So it's a little bit different. Like this is something that when people use our application, it's because they're, they did something wrong or something bad happened. So they, they start with a negative energy when they come to our application, because the world is on fire basically.
Yeah.
So, but I also have a game company, and there we definitely talk about these kind of things. And we're talking about, I think, but Philip, as you said, you come from the game industry, and I think in the game industry and the game world, this is something that's used a lot as a yeah. So you can see it's like there's the date. Like if you download almost any game on the phone, iPhone or Android, they will have a system that's called daily rewards or something like that.
Yeah.
Where every day you come in, you collect your prize, you collect because they want that retention to go down, and they do that. And I think that's where your sentence really makes sense, or that, stop giving free shit and start giving care. And that transition into that, because from a game perspective, that's really difficult to actually, achieve and get to that point.
I'm going to jump in here.
I'll shut up because I can talk a lot.
You are completely on point with the source of most of the information I have. I am myself a gamer by heart, and I have been working as a game designer for a long time. So a lot of these things are grabbed directly either from World of Warcraft or something like that, where these systems are well respected and well modified into tailoring into these psychological behaviors. So at a whole nother note, Zoom is telling me host disabled participating screen sharing. So maybe you can turn it on somewhere.
Let's see, did that help?
Let me see. Yeah, that helped. So let's just a sec. So
Maybe they actually have worked with the stress level on being live and taking that part seriously, as you mentioned, Torbjørn, the user coming in and having a certain stress level.
And I'm completely muted, but yes, exactly. I think yeah, Zoom also work with that kind of, or should work with that kind of stuff. But I think Peter joined. So
yeah, hi Peter, welcome.
Hi. Oh, hi.
Okay, here we go. Yay!
great.
Oh.
So I had to bring my dog in, and this is not the only slide. We have dogs. So I mentioned in the subtitle that I was going to bring dogs into the presentation, and I really feel that it has become relevant for me to compare motivational behavior in human psychology with behavioral elements. Behavioral elements in terms of dog training. So yeah, let's just get started. You told me that I have 20 minutes. I'll try to keep it under that. Now we already talked a lot. So now that there's not a lot of people in the meeting, so I'm not going to talk about my background. Hopefully what I said already sort of resonates with what people are thinking about. So one of the key sort of questions that came up during my time when I did this presentation is, what is loyalty actually? And I think these two images encompasses really well the two different types of loyalty. Either you can try to buy your way through loyalty, and let's get into the downsides of that later, or you can try to love your way into loyalty, and there's definitely pros and cons for both worlds, and some are more doable than others. And there's been written a lot of books about this in terms of branding, and this is not necessarily a branding slide deck, but there's a lot of branding elements in it. And of course, UXs doesn't always have mandate to change business strategy, but there's also a lot of business strategy in this. But I hope some of the people that either watch the video or are in the place here has access to a bit of strategy at the places they work. So this guy is my dad-in-law. He is a really well and I would say known, but he's well known within the dog training world. He's one of the best dog trainers in Denmark, and he's been invited to hunts with the royal often because he has such high well-trained dogs, and he has different systems that he uses for behavioral change in terms of how he treats dogs and how he wants us to train our dogs. So as you can see here, I've tried to sort of everything that I know from him is he's been telling me in Danish. So I've been trying roughly to sort of punch it down in English, and I also sort of found some sources on American trainers that has the same paradigms. So it's best to teach your dog new behaviors using treats. And that's because extrinsic motivation has a really high effect from the start. But once your dog is starting to learn the behavior, it's important to start wearing off the treats. So why should we wear off the treats? So this is really telling the true story here. Your dog should love you for more than just dispensing food to them. Using treats to grow your relationship with your dog can prevent the relationship from reaching a deeper and more meaningful level. So this really resonated with me when he told me this, and it really tied well into the whole model I did many years ago, and these elements that I'm trying to dig out in user behavior is that if we look at the motivational design and extrinsic motivation versus intrinsic motivation, we really quickly get sorry, I'm just going to grab some water. We really quickly get to realize that extrinsic motivation is about compensation, punishment, and reward. Normally in UX, we don't see punishment anywhere, but definitely behavioral psychology and behavioral change is still seeing punishment being used. So a good example is driving over a red light today. That is a punishment in terms of extrinsic motivation. So yeah, extrinsic motivation refers to this external reward that is either money or coupons, gifts, or even school grades are also considered as an external reward. So the pupils doesn't necessarily have focus on getting the assignment right because they like to. They do it because they want better grades. So it's an external factor that drives the element. This is sort of a graph I did showing sort of how extrinsic motivation works over time. So again, I've been saying that many times, it works really well as soon as you implement it, but it doesn't really increase. The motivation or the engagement or commitment doesn't really increase over time. And once you remove the reward, the commitment is back to zero. And a really good example is you're getting paid to do your job. And once your company stops paying you, I'm pretty sure most commitment falls to a standstill for most people. And then again, can we talk about is this loyalty? Can you be loyal to a company and then when they stop paying you, if you still don't want to work for them, then I'm not sure if it's loyalty. We often see with small startups that that payment comes to a standstill, and people still keep working on the elements or the services in the startup, and that's really courageous, and that is a bit more into the intrinsic motivational part. So let's move on to intrinsic motivation. It's about fulfillment, satisfaction, and respect. And there's a lot of other parameters in intrinsic motivation. So down here, I already hashtag dopamine because some of these mental triggers really ties into to what gives us these dopamine impulses in our brains. And it has been in the news talked about in negative way, but a lot, if you read about behavioral books, a lot of this is tying into how we can sort of give people that joy in the elements we serve them. And if we look at the graph over time with intrinsic motivation, it's really hard to get right at the start. Just being nice and trying to give people a good time, it really takes time to get that increase in. I would say time is one of the most important factors of motivation in general. And that is why extrinsic motivation is a bit of cheating, because it works instantly. But if you look at companies that have been successful with intrinsic motivation, we can see that the local carpenter or the small local toy store in your small town, they have been there for a long time, and maybe for all the time, you know. A lot of people are willingly to pay extra to shop in their store because of this intrinsic motivation. They have some heartful values that are in place for these kind of small stores and brands and people around in the local vicinity. But also, if we look at companies like Nike and Apple, you never see them coming out with coupons or free pencils or 10% off on your next iPhone. And that is really something that I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides. But they have really succeeded with intrinsic motivation on a so high level that if you ask a loyal Nike user why they don't use Reebok, they cannot really tell you in a proper way, because much of what is happening within intrinsic motivation is something that can't really be explained. It's definitely coming from the heart. So I'm not trying to sort of separate these two elements. I really have respect for how these two different elements work. You just need to realize that you can go one way from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. You cannot go the other way, where if you have let's say you have a local brand in your local town, and people love you for who you are and your personality and the way you treat people. If you start giving people discounts and motivate them with extrinsic rewards, the motivation will fall, not necessarily instantly, but as soon as you stop giving them some of these extrinsic motivational rewards, your already achieved intrinsic motivation will reset down to zero. So there's been a lot of studies with this effect called the over-justification effect. So basically it can be encompassed to, if you pay children to draw, fun becomes work. And there's been some studies back in the 60s when the psychologists started looking into extrinsic motivation versus intrinsic motivation. And there's also been a lot of other studies in terms of work that if you give a small group of people an assignment and the A version of the group gets money for it, and the other group doesn't get money to complete it. Actually, what we see is often, especially within the creative field, that you get more quality of the output without paying. So if you have a task that people are intrinsically motivated in doing, you should not give them a reward to do it, especially when we talk about creative within the creative field or open-ended field. If we're talking about factory workers, it's in a whole nother ballpark. But especially if we look at the study around kids drawing, not only did the kids lose interest in drawing after they got paid, also the drawing itself became worse after they gotten paid for it. So it's an interesting way of looking at it. So if we look into some of the methods or some of the handles we have inside intrinsic motivation, because extrinsic motivation is really easy to use, intrinsic motivation can be really hard to use. You have to use it right in order to get some good results from it. And that's why a lot of studies has been going into intrinsic motivation, and it has been sort of separated up into three genres that is tying really well into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we don't have all the needs here, but some of the elements in intrinsic motivation can be put into the ego needs, the social needs, and sort of the fulfillment needs, which can be tied to the physical needs. So if we quickly start from the bottom, the fulfillment needs is all about, if you are a user, you come into Google and you search for some specifications for a dishwasher. As soon as you find those specifications, your needs are fulfilled, and you actually get a small reward in your brain, even though you might not notice it nowadays. But I think we are so used to hitting things up on the net and get some quick results, and we're getting so much used to it. But it really is a good intrinsic motivation to be able to fulfill some information people need, or some goal that has spontaneously is coming from the user. So if you can fill their needs, you definitely already there have a reward for them. And then there's the social rewards. It's pretty clear how they work. It's basically around connectedness, how to drive a community, and how to drive motivation just through that connectivity. And then there's the reward of the self. It's about feeling respected, feeling that you can contribute. It's also one of the important factors if you ask employers or employees. What is the most valued element of why work is often the feeling that you have a contribution, and feeling that your contribution is respected. So that's definitely something that is being overseen both on work environments, but also within digital services. We might talk well to our customers, but there's really some methods that we need to take into consideration. I wouldn't say we need to standardize elements or make it mechanical, but we really need to consider how we make sure we keep doing it, and do it to an extent that people feel satisfying. And of course, there's also the creepy ceiling that we cannot go through the creepy ceiling. I had a really good example. I talked to another dog trainer yesterday, and I told her what she would feel if she walked into her local store, and the store manager came over and gave her a hug, and she said, "Okay, now we are definitely stepping on some pushing some buttons I'm not gonna talk about, because that is really creepy." So there is really a creepy ceiling that you should be careful not going through, and that also entitles into just your vocabulary and how you talk to people. It can be nice, it can be respectful, but it can also become creepy. So now at this point we're at the model I want to go through, and I think these are some of the last things I want to talk about. So this is sort of the pacing program that we modeled back when I worked at Wunderman, and I bet some of you that has been playing games can see some of the both the wordings and the methods, both in terms of grinding and epic rewards and invite bonuses. We often see invite bonuses not only in games but also in services nowadays. So I'll just get through the steps just really quickly, just try to underline what's important in the different steps. So the starting bonus is really important for the starting bonus to be personal, and we should remember that extrinsic motivation is really okay to use in a starting bonus, giving them either free shipping on their first order, or giving them 10% off if they register for an account or something like that. It's perfectly fine, and I think it's getting more and more expected to be that you become appreciated at this level when you sort of step into a service where you have sort of the goals for creating long-term relationships with your users. So once you have sort of established the first ground relationship with the user, and you see the user coming back in sessions, you can start doing the pattern building. And I have a few extra slides just for this pattern building elements, and it comes from the book Hooked from Nir Eyal. It has also been mentioned a lot in Copenhagen UX the times I've been there, and we're going to come back to that, how that works. But in general, give people regular opportunities for action through nudging. So a classic example is you get a ping from one of your apps, and the app is telling you that you can do this really quickly if you come back now, or if you come in now, we have this opportunity for you, just for you, and be personal again. And then it would be really important to mix this up with what Nir Ayal is calling variable rewards. And variable rewards is something that is effective in its way, that it's been used with TikTok and TV series and case opening in games, where people are eager to see what's coming next. And if you have sort of a wrapped gift for your users or your customers, it's actually working better than if you show them what you have for them next time they come in, because of the excitement and the uncertainty and predictability. So there's a lot of elements about predictability that can lower engagement. If you have a website that keeps looking the same, if you have an e-commerce store that doesn't renew its products, so it's because everything is predictable. If people come in for the third time and your service is looking exactly the same and you're offering exactly the same, then the motivation just drops because of boredom, unfortunately. So the heroing element is where you can start going from short-term actions to long-term actions. So before, with the pattern building and the starting bonus, it was all about giving actions short-term, getting people activated quickly and make sure that it happens within a short amount of time. So when you start to see the pattern building working, you should definitely try to start building long-term loyalty through either tasks or challenges. Of course, it always have to be meaningful tasks. You cannot just grab something out of the blue and expect people to do it. So already now we are trying to see some intrinsic motivation being used. Of course, you can mix and match extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation during a lot of these steps, but definitely there's a tendency to move into intrinsic motivation the more we come into these mastering levels. So the heroing element can be built upon intrinsic motivation, but it's if you want to go to that level where you say, okay, if you keep doing this for us, you will at the end get something that is very valuable to us, and we hope it's very valuable to you also. It's really appreciation for our side that you keep working with us, or keep doing these nudging elements that we push upon you. Not that you have to word it in that sense, but it's basically just you need to try to build something greater than just giving them small opportunities. Yeah. So I think so. The mastering is a bit similar to the heroing model, but the mastering here we start to see exclusivity, where the heroing model can often be tied to stamp cards. Let's say you have a stamp card concept where you, if you buy something 10 times, the last product you buy is for free. That is a classic example of the progress grinding and the heroing model. If we look at mastering, it's more about creating a larger point system where the user can see that the more you shop, or the more you engage with this brand, the more rewarded you're going to be. A really great example is the Co-op shopping app. They are rewarding you with more and more percentages over time, and at the end of the year, in the Christmas month, you will get all of the bonus you have sort of accumulated. You will get that back as a Christmas gift, and that's a perfect example of these very long-term point systems, or very long-term loyalty programs where you build up for something greater. And something you can also open up for is social activity. So start trying to engage the user in some sort of a cooperative environment where you can give them discounts based on if you come in with a buddy, or you can either challenge your neighborhood, or you can challenge people in your country, sort of in a peer-to-peer engagement, where it's like you can compare it with a top 10 list where people want to be motivated to get to that top of that list. But you can also go the other way around, where it's a collaborative environment, and you get intrinsically motivated by working with other people to complete either goals or something like that. So engaging with others, it is really connecting into the social reward. And then at the end, you should sort of level your most loyal users up to this ambassador level, where they can see that they have some other unique abilities than the rest of the user group. Either you can invite them to events, or invite them to a feedback program where they can help build on your platform, and remember to give them feedback on their feedback, instead of just having a feedback form where they can leave feedback and then they don't hear anything from the company. It's often seen that it helps giving feedback, and maybe also results based on their ideas, and that really also ties into intrinsic motivation in terms of how we feel that we are contributing to the greater good. So that's again how the intrinsic motivation works. And of course, as I mentioned here, invite bonuses. At this level, you can start telling them that they're at the level now that they can start when they talk about their buddies, about this brand or the system or the service, that we really feel that we appreciate that you're talking with your buddies or your friends or your family, and we really want to reward you as a person when you invite someone else into the system. And often with brands like Gucci or Louis Vuitton, you don't really see invite bonuses or anything, but what you definitely see is a loyalty level where people are willingly to talk a lot about the product, a lot about the brand, without getting anything. And that's actually unfortunate that these brands doesn't show appreciation when they have loyal users that want to share their not the expectations, share their feelings with the brand. It should be possible to set up a system where when you have a friend or a family member that starts becoming a customer, you should be able to link that back to the invite bonus. Yeah, you also often see that with YouTubers and influencers, that they have these special invite links or bonus links that they use. So that was basically most of my presentation. I have a few more slides, but I think I'm going to stop here. Many of the other slides is basically diving into these different phases and talking about how to handle the different elements in terms of motivation.
And so, Philip, how does this tie into our theme for the 2022 conference?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we talked about that on LinkedIn, that I really need to find a twist in terms of finding the right sort of the right link.
Well, I suppose, I mean, a subject that's been mentioned many times is at the conference is wicked design and
problems.
And dark patterns. So I mean, this is the opposite. So I guess that is anyway, right?
Yeah, well, I think there's a red line in terms of going away from giving treats and going into this thing where we want people to feel appreciated.
Yeah. What did you want to
say? Yeah, exactly. Because you said stop giving free stuff and start giving care. Yeah. I think perfectly within the theme for this year or next year.
Really new.
Yeah.
Yeah, Torbjørn, go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, my thought when I was watching this is the obvious for me at least is I, as a manager in my company and with my team, I use this very, very often and understand that even I think it was Harvard Business Review did some research on this, I believe, where if you want people to work in a company, you actually have to do this same, right? It's the same kind of process, is that when I have to motivate my team, salary just have to be there. But for them to be like, for me to change the motivation of my team to be an internal drive instead of me having to push everyone to do their work.
Yes.
This ties very, very much into that. Is like, and you will see that if you read any management books that's written.
Also, the
after
quality
the
of the work will increase if you can
not
tie
just
that.
a little bit.
Yeah. So Helle, I think I asked you at some point about the common theme, and I think you corrected me at some point. Can you just update me on what it exactly was the common theme of March next year?
Yes, certainly. It's okay, yeah, because there was a copy paste error in our communication, but yeah, the theme is creating a culture change.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Great.
sorry about that. But yeah, I think it definitely ties in. And I mean, behavioral science is always something that I think is important to have at the conference in any case.
But I actually think that I could just divert a lot of my examples in terms of making this not about consumers and about the businesses to consumers, but maybe more in terms of both employers and employees and governments and citizens.
Yeah.
Not that I have that much experience with B2G, but I can try to come up with some examples.
I think Lone and I might have a few examples you could use.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Anyways, I had a question for you. You were talking about loyalty, and well, can you call intrinsic motivation loyalty? And I would say, you know, after leaving a company, you were talking about ending like in a job somewhere. And I would say it's definitely important to keep going because, I mean, even though, and I've said this before, even though it's 2021, the power of, you know, word of mouth is still incredibly big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, how you speak about a company after leaving, I think that's, I mean, you still have to have that intrinsic motivation when leaving the company, because otherwise people are going to start bad mouthing your company. Am I right?
You're still an ambassador, and even as leaving the company, you're even more important as an ambassador, because you will reach people that this company would never reach.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. But I think I will try to bend a lot of my slides into not being about branding and not being about companies, but being about work environments and governments and culture. I think
culture
it should
is
be
an important point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be both important, but also I wouldn't say easy. But if we look at my starting slides where a lot of these elements are being worked with dogs. I think I can also bend it in terms of motivational change in other areas. I also have to state that a lot of the studies that have been used during the 30s and 20s was starting out by being used on not dogs but wolves and other animals and rats, and then concluded that they were also they should also be able to be used on humans. One really great example is group thinking, right? It started out by being subjective to animals, and then the study people were concluding that it must be the same thing with humans, and until we started concluding that it was exactly right. So we are thinking exactly like rats, right?
So actually that was one of the notes that I wrote down here in the very beginning, is that you introduced with the dogs and you talked about the dogs. I was really missing that link that you just gave now is like, how do I transfer from a dog to a human being?
Yeah.
And that, so because I understand the link, I understand why you would choose a dog, because everyone looks at a dog and they think loyalty.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for, you know, humans as well, obviously.
Yeah, but
for us,
we're more rational, and often we use our rational to neglect different elements in that term.
Yeah. So and what I was missing is that link between dog and human, and how do you actually link that in?
Yeah.
So do you have a dog, Philip?
Yeah, I had the dog in the first slide with the whistle in his mouth, the Cocker field trade.
Okay. It must be scary if you have this perfect father-in-law.
Well, yeah, she's actually getting trained by one of his friends,
Okay.
but he definitely has some good advice always on how to to train different elements. So that's really great.
That's great. Well, this guy is probably not halfway as well trained as your dog, but I will say it's my second dog, and he's much more well trained than my previous dog.
Yeah, but I think, as I mentioned just a minute ago, we humans are rational, but and then again, we are also that irrational that I don't have the best well-trained dog, because we also like to skip on different assignments and different elements, and yeah, you should be allowed to do that once in a while, right? And I think that's also an important part of one of my system, is that even though in order to obtain the intrinsic motivation, you have to sort of do the system right, but you sometimes you also need to build systems to have room for slack.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have one. Do you know if is there specific areas of business areas? No, of course, game design is, but where these reward systems just don't work, or it's better, or yeah, well, we know it's in Coop and supermarkets and all that.
Yeah.
They are often used, but is there, with your knowledge, places?
Yeah, well, it's actually hard to say, because when I was at Wunderman, we did some campaigns for Coca-Cola that ran for several years, and a lot of the basis we had from there was also used with Matas Striberne and the points in the Matas program. And even though when you look into analytics and you can see that it's giving a boost, maybe you can say when is the KPI reached, and when is it a success? Because if you implement a system and you can see a small, often we see a small increase, we would never see a negative impact, and that is sort of maybe the question, is that how do you test a negative impact based on maybe creepiness or just unrelated prices? Or something like that. Definitely feedback should be in place, but a lot of the experiences and a lot of the examples I've used is before we in UX conducted a lot of interviews. We basically just deployed really good ideas and looked at the analytics. So the latest I have been working with was Selling Group implemented the Bilka Plus and Netto Plus and Føtex Plus, a copy of the Coop loyalty program, and unfortunately I stopped at Selling Group before we got the point to have it running for a year and started testing or interviewing our users. I did though participate in a design sprint where we interviewed the users and their immediate feedback on our prototype, and some of the elements they said is that they really thought it was a good idea, and of course they wanted free shit. They didn't say it in that sense, but we sort of had the feeling that as long as they got some good discounts and some free rewards once in a while, they would definitely see this as a perfect choice. One thing we went out with as a negative feedback was that we were trying to launch one app per brand, and they wanted, like Coop has one app for all of Selling Group's brands, but unfortunately the boss from Selling Group didn't want to have the brands associated with each other. So at the end of the day, people had to download three different apps that were skinned with the same mechanics. Unfortunately, and yeah, I would love to hear people's feedback about it today, but unfortunately I'm out of the loop.
That's how it is.
Yeah, that is how politics works.
Yeah. I mean, I have Netto Plus, and it's a lot different from the Coop app. That's for sure. I don't feel like it's a loyalty program. I feel like sometimes I might get some sort of discount if I go in and look at for the discounts. Same with, I think, but
the funny part is that we use this model in the design sprint and in the prototyping, But once the business unit started taking over and the stakeholders started taking over, they didn't believe in a lot of the elements. They thought that the punch card effect didn't really give anything. So buying something 10 times will give you the last one for free. Or I wanted to have a point system where you can visually see where you are as a customer, and then be able to elevate customers to another level where they are invited either to events or tasting events or getting other kinds of prizes that everybody else, even being able to increase their general discount based on their customer level.
They are competing across the brands.
Yes,
even though it's the same corporation.
Yeah.
No, yeah. But I think a lot of the elements I wanted to put in most likely were too costly and also demanded a lot from administration. So they went with a simple version.
I have a question about a professional audience, because my audience are developers.
Yeah.
And might as well be UXers or UI people. But I mean, it's not like what you bring back to your fridge, but professional audiences that invest time in learning a framework and engaging in a community, and how do you build that community? And I don't expect you to give me a silver bullet, because it's really difficult.
Yeah, I guess it's really difficult. I think if you tie into the social elements, being able to both compete and collaborate, I think that's a really great element to start off with. You would see it with Stack, what it's called, Stack Exchange, or
so any kind of social media where people can collaborate and sort of gain street creds and whatever.
Yeah. But also this upvoting and downvoting solutions that you often see both on Reddit and other forums is based on these triggers that you get.
So now I'm in a security-related business, so
yeah,
it's sometimes kind of difficult, but we're getting used to it.
It's because it's a walled garden where the community sort of is in a closed group, or
it used to be very much Microsoft and very much on-site on-prem solutions.
Yeah,
and getting used to cooperating through cloud services, and it's really that's a challenge.
Yeah, but I think this thing about contributing, I think that is a key for many things in terms of the social thing, where if you feel you are empowered in terms of your contributions, as I said, these upvoting and downvotings, that's basically empowering people to come up with better contributions and more.
I think my point is that it's for street cred.
I didn't get the last one.
Corporate.net, something very ancient. That's a different market from a very open source oriented.
Yeah. So you're saying that you need to pay them to work with the closed systems, and they would much rather work with the open systems.
I don't know. We actually need to be part of this transition.
Yes,
it will happen.
Yeah, into the open systems, you mean?
Into a more open community. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a challenge for Microsoft as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have a immediate response to that. It's too far away from the branding world I'm from. Yeah. But I definitely see there should be a lot of elements that.
I think what some of the differences are that developers and UXers and UI people are they really commit a lot of effort.
Yeah. Is there a but?
We lost you, Peter.
When you go into a framework, you bet your career on it. So you really have to trust that this is backed up. Yeah. We'll help you out if there's a problem.
I've been working with Flash for 15 years, so I definitely know where you're coming from. I was a huge part of the Flash community in Aarhus and in Copenhagen, and I basically knew most of the people that work professional with Flash in Denmark. And of course, when Flash started dying, we rallied together and started shouting in every direction. But but it was a great community, and a lot of these people that was from the Flash community is now sitting as leaders in different startups, and it's great. But I spent a lot of nights back then creating free stuff, lab experiments just for the community, just to hear their feedback. So I definitely believe this element of contributing to the community in terms of both solutions but also new discoveries can be intrinsically motivating.
So I have like a huge list of feedback that I would really like to give. I don't want you to, or you don't need to enter it, but we have like 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to take like if Mirjana or Stine have some, comments, I don't want to take the time away from those from you guys.
What we can do is we can continue for the last 2 minutes and then kind of round off, and then maybe Philip and Torbjørn, if you have time to stay on.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
That's okay.
Any closing comments from anybody else?
Well, I had a not funny, but it was kind of funny problem with loyalty at a assignment I was doing for a pension fund. There is extremely high loyalty in that pension fund, but zero interest in the product.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the members were forced by the employer or the
definitely
union into that.
Yeah.
So the company was actually struggling very hard to figure out how to engage them in conversations.
I talked to Nordlys around a similar effect, that some companies are meant to be transparent and then be silent. And it's really important not to creep up on people with your own intentions. It's extra hard for those companies. It's extra hard for those companies because they're not invited in. They're not invited to the ball.
Well, even when they are, because we try to invite them in, they wasn't interested because they couldn't. Well, we could also always get better rates and all that, but the interest was like your insurance. You just want to pay for it once a year, and that's
one element that I hear Morten Mønster saying a lot is the ease of use. I think in these kind of companies, the best thing you can do is brag about how your product is easier than the other product, because I feel I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there paying too much for either power or water or anything else that's in the private sector, and they don't really care because it's too much of a hassle to move from one element to another. So if you can introduce a way where easy is really the motivating part, it really has an impact. He came up with a solution for the Danish church where you normally pay taxes for the Danish church until you resign your membership. And back when gay marriages came into effect, a lot of the Danish people resigned from the Danish church. But a few years later, when they enabled online cancellation of your membership, it sort of tripled compared to sort of the political element in the gay marriages. It tripled because of the ease of canceling. So it's sort of an inverted example, but it really shows that ease can move a lot of people. And he also has an example where I'm moving. It was a company that did the isolation under your roofs, but they couldn't get any customers, so they hired a moving company to clear their roofs out, and that is just tying into the ease of use, so that the people would want that, even though it's a bit more expensive.
That was at UX Copenhagen. What talk was that?
I think I heard it just directly from Morten Mønster. So maybe I think Morten has inspired a lot of different talks I've heard. I think the first 5 people taking elements from his books directly into talks, and it's funny to have sit and both watch his shows and then read his books and just being able to copy whatever it is people are saying.
I think I heard the story first and then Morten Mønster, but
maybe he picked it up from UX Copenhagen.
I think he did. Of course he did. For anybody who doesn't
he
know,
did.
this is a very popular writer here. He's a behavioral scientist.
Yeah.
Very smart guy, and he's written several books on behavioral science.
Yeah.
Anyways, it is past 6 o'clock, so I'm going to say thank you everybody for joining us. It's been lovely. I will publish the video to our YouTube channel. And of course, I hope to meet you all someday, hopefully at UX Copenhagen. And Philip, thank you so much for joining us and for your lovely talk. I can't wait to see that, live at UX Copenhagen.
Yeah, it's been great, and I definitely want to move it into the right direction in terms of the umbrella theme. So I think it can work, and I have a lot of different directions I can go.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much. Anybody, you guys can stay on. I will stop the recording now, but yeah, thank you so much for being here. Bye.